everyone. Welcome back. It's another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod. I'm your host, Alex Goldberg. With me, as always, is Dr. Justin Quinn, and joining us for the second week in a row, Daniel Donabedian. Guys, guess what? Big announcement. Daniel is going to be joining us going forward as a recurring host. We are very excited to welcome him into the fold. Appreciate having you on, as always, and we are excited that that's going to be a cool addition to this pod. Daniel has been doing some very good work as a Celtics journo, and we have every belief that he is going to continue in what's going to be, well, probably a pretty weird and interesting future for the Boston Celtics, both in the immediate and long term. Daniel, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good. I mean, like you're saying, plenty of news that's going on, a lot of craziness, but I know we'll get into all that.
Oh, yeah. JQ, what's going on in Mexico City?
Pulled backs and old men. Just be careful when you go to the gym when you get to be like close to 50. It's highly recommendable.
Yep, I hear that. I got something going on with my shoulder, and I'm in my early 30s, so feeling fine, feeling great. Going to be in Boston this week. That's the only big news I have, but yeah, always happy to be back. Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about, so let's just get right into it. We're on the heels of free agency, which kicked off, 36 hours ago, something like that. A lot has happened. A whole lot of things have happened, and we're going to get right into it. Let's start with how free agency has affected the Boston Celtics. A couple of big developments. First off, Luke Kornet, unfortunately for me, one of my favorite Boston Celtics players of the past few years, has left the Boston Celtics. He will be signing with the San Antonio Spurs for 4 years, $41 million. This will, of course, leave yet another hole in the Boston front court, having lost Kristaps Porzingis, and with Al Horford's future uncertain, to say the least, but they've at least partially addressed it in the form of Luka Garza, the former Minnesota center, who is now a Boston Celtic after being signed earlier today. They also signed another Minnesota bench guy in Josh Minott, who is, adding to the team. So a lot happening. Front court has been shaken up. We still don't know what's happening with Al Horford. Daniel, where do you want to start?
I guess we'll start with the first move, Kornet. I mean, I never could have imagined the backlash or the response of him leaving would be this huge, but after the last season where he really impressed and overachieved, honestly, I think it's granted, and just the money he got, it was a bit of a slap in the face for the Celtics in terms of money. Just like they can't hang with that. $41 million, 4 years. They just can't hang with that right now due to the new CBA and all the second apron going on.
JQ, what are your thoughts on the state of the C's front court? Take it in any direction you want.
Oh boy. Well, I could take it in a bunch of different directions, and it's going to be taken in a bunch of different directions. And by that, I mean, if you recall several episodes ago when we were talking about what we thought the season was going to look like, one of the things we talked about was it's going to look unfamiliar with a lot of faces going through the organization that maybe aren't around for very long. Maybe some of them stick, maybe some of them don't. We are seeing the Luka Garzos and Josh Minott. I'm not really even sure how to say his name yet. Apologies, we'll get that right when we figure out what that is. But these are the kinds of players that kind of second draft guys, or guys that maybe haven't quite hit their potential because they've been buried in the rotation of their former team. Stuff like that. We're going to see a lot of those guys moving through the team this season, and hopefully one of them works out. I don't know enough about either of these new Celtics to really comment on them, but from a very quick glance at what they've done so far, they don't look like very productive players now. I'm more enthusiastic about Minott, however we say his name, Josh, we'll call him Josh, than I am about Luka.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably an accurate take. I don't know. I mean, I watched Luka Garza. Last time I watched Luka Garza, he was in the NCAA tearing things up as a senior. And yeah, no, it's kind of, I mean, he hasn't played very much in the league since he's made it to the Timberwolves. both of these guys have played in spurts, and per kind of what I've read, they haven't got much opportunity, but when they have gotten opportunities, they've looked okay. I am personally biased against Luka Garza through no fault of his own, just because of the kind of type of player that he is. A big that doesn't really shoot, isn't really much of a passer, and also has not shown much on the defensive end. But we'll see. Minott, at least the athleticism kind of jumps out to me. I think more than anything, I'm really just kind of sad about the fact that Luke Kornet is gone. I really enjoyed watching Luke Kornet grow and develop on this team. And maybe he provides, his story provides some optimism for kind of some of these guys, because Luke Kornet was a fringe player when the Celtics signed him.
Yeah.
People did not have very high expectations for him, and he really blossomed into an extremely productive bench big who could start at times. I'm happy he got his bag, but I will miss him a lot. I do think it's going to be very funny to watch him with Victor Wembanyama and see the consequences for that in the Western Conference. As far as what the rest of the Celtics front court looks like, presumably Neemias Queta is going to be moving into a starting role, barring any other moves. He seems like he would be the most likely candidate to start at center, just based on his experience. Maybe Xavier Tillman as well, though frankly I have my doubts about Xavier Tillman's long-term place on this roster. That is, to put it bluntly, not looking like the best front court in the world heading into this season. Obviously, Al Horford's status is still uncertain. There are a lot of potential suitors, including the Golden State Warriors, Denver Nuggets, New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Los Angeles Lakers, and presumably many others, because, spoiler alert, Al Horford is pretty good at basketball. So looking at the possibility that Horford might be on the move, looking at Neemias Queta as a possible starting center, what can we extrapolate about where things are headed for this team in terms of their potential viability next year? I'll leave it open to either one of you.
Damn, you grab it.
I mean, the only thing that's certain right now is the uncertainty. It's pretty crazy. We know the Celtics are going to do something else. I see a lot of people like freaking out online, but we know now they have the full roster, which they usually don't at this point in the season. We know they're going to shuffle that up and probably make some trades. But yeah, just having Queta as your true center at the moment, even if it's just for right now, is still scary. Because like we were saying, I think last episode, he's not experienced enough to get that full-time starting role. Even if this team is maybe not quite competing, but like still soft competing. I know we'll talk about that more, but I don't see them going into a full tank. So you would still like for them to make more moves, especially in the front court.
I think you nailed it right on the head. I think what we're looking at is the Celtics are trying to set the team up for the future as best as possible. And if they can, the present, but the future, as it should be, is the priority. So if they can find the right trade partners / signing targets, but probably trade partners at this point, then they might end up with a front court that is actually competitive. They might find someone. We could talk about, I have an idea later that I want to soft launch. I've already kind of bugged you guys with before we started. But
and to be clear, you've been bugging us about this idea for a while.
Well, yeah, versions of it. Absolutely. No, very, very true. But whatever ends up happening, when Brad says that they prize flexibility in competition, he does really mean the flexibility part. I am not as sure about the competition part, but really just the thing to remember going forward is that none of this is a finished product. And when we say none of this is a finished product, we may mean for the entire duration of the coming season.
Yeah, I am keeping my eye on what's happening with Anthony Simons, because to me, what happens with Anthony Simons feels like it's going to dictate a lot of what this next season is going to look like. He's got about $30 million in salary, which is expiring, somewhere close to that number. If the Boston Celtics plan is to let Anthony Simons walk, then to me that speaks to their intentions about what this season is going to be, which is playing for cap space, potentially playing for a high lottery pick, doing the Golden State Warriors gap year approach, if you will. If y'all will remember, between the explosion of Kevin Durant's Achilles and the Warriors' next title run, they took about 2 years to reset the roster. They cleared a bunch of cap room. They got some high draft picks. They didn't do that much with those high draft picks, but they did get them. And I think depending on what's happening with Anthony Simons, that could tell us a lot about their intentions for this next season. I'll leave that at that. Speaking of Simons, just quickly, there are multiple reports that he is potentially going to be on the move again. As to why, I think we can extrapolate. He is sitting on that $30 million expiring contract. So other news really for the Celtics as far as they're concerned, the only other news is that they have exercised their option on JD Davison to bring him back. However, it is a non-guaranteed deal as far as I understand it. It is guaranteed, according to Justin Quinn. All right, well, Justin Quinn is also on mute, by the way, despite talking through it. But
it was unguaranteed, and then they guaranteed it. I'm also very
gotcha. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
So he'll be on the roster. He's JD Davison. He's been doing his thing. G League MVP. Who knows? Maybe he'll blossom into something more. I think there are some other moves that we should talk about that do not involve the Boston Celtics. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference. A lot has happened in the Eastern Conference. Daniel, I'll kick it to you. Where do you want to start? Because there's a lot to talk about.
I guess the obvious thing to start with would be just the explosion of news from Milwaukee today. I mean, them stretching Dame's contract, I don't think that was a move really anybody saw coming. No, I never, so many articles get written about potential offseason moves, and I don't think anybody saw that coming. And then I guess them just bringing back a few of those lower tier guys like Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, but then bringing in Miles Turner, who's just fresh off losing Game 7. That was pretty stunning. And going to a team that Indiana just straight up does not like. We saw it in the playoffs. We saw it in the regular season too. There's real beef there, and now their longest tenured player is a Buck.
Yeah, it's really going to shake up the conference picture. There are reports that Giannis Antetokounmpo was not pleased about these developments. For what it's worth, he also was not super pleased about Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton being traded, and the Bucks did it anyway, and it turned out he was actually kind of fine with those. So I would take that with a big old chunk of sea salt, but that's just me. What I will say is, yeah, the Miles Turner acquisition is just fascinating. The Bucks needed an upgrade at center in terms of athleticism and ability. Miles Turner checks a lot of the boxes that Brook Lopez checked while being younger, more athletic upside. They are paying Miles Turner a decent amount of money, but it's not a backbreaking amount of money, and it's certainly not as much as they were paying Damian Lillard. For a starting center who just made the finals, I think that is a fair amount. What I will say is the Bucks are now in a very weird place where I think it's pretty hard to argue that they didn't get better. But they are still a little short at the guard position, I think. I am fine with the Gary Harris signing. It doesn't particularly move me. And they're going to be paying Damian Lillard $20 million a year for the next 4-ish years to do nothing for the Milwaukee Bucks. JQ, why don't we break that part down? What do you got for us there?
Oh boy, I mean, it seems pretty clear that the next move is to acquire a starting level, or at least something vaguely approaching a starting level guard, because you can run point Giannis, but that leaves them pretty vulnerable on both ends, really, with the amount of energy he'll have to expend to be that kind of a player and be Giannis in other ways. I don't think we can really judge any of the teams that we are looking at, but there are some pretty big hints about what teams are going to be trying to do with the rest of free agency, and that's a pretty big one. I do think that they are probably a little bit better than they were last season, just because of the age issue you pointed out with Turner. I think they have a little bit better roster balance too in terms of talent, if not overwhelmingly improving the talent. So I think they fit a little bit better as well. But I don't even think they are the team that really got better today, and we should probably spend some time talking about them as well if you know where I'm going.
Oh, I think we do, and we will talk about them. But there is another team in this transaction that I think we need to talk about, and that's a team that did not get better, which is the Indiana
Indy.
Pacers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Tyrese Halliburton is presumably out for all of next season with a torn Achilles, joining his Olympic teammate Jason Tatum. But Miles Turner, the linchpin of the Pacers defense, which was surprising and solid and got them to the finals, the longest tenured Indiana Pacer, is now going to their arch rival in the Milwaukee Bucks. What does this mean for Indy, guys? Daniel, fresh off Game 7 finals run heartbreak, what are we looking at for this Pacers team next year?
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted about it right after it happened. I was just like, can't imagine being a Pacers fan right now. You get so close to the promised land. Then you see Halliburton go down first quarter. Now your longest tenured player is walking out. And it's just a reminder, like, there's no reward for second place in the NBA, really. We saw it with the Celtics in 2022. They got that experience, yeah, that helped. And they were lucky enough to make it back eventually. But that's not always the case. And sometimes you just get a longer, drawn-out season, more tired, and then to just lose like that. And now losing in the offseason for now, it's just crushing. And it might be back to step one for them.
JQ, thoughts on the post-mortem for Indy and our boy Corey Waldron? We're pouring one out for you, boss. You're on mute once again.
Yeah, I'm in rare form today. This is the new NBA. The shelf life for title runs was never as long as most people seem to have been thinking it was to begin with. And now it's like, if you are there, you better throw everything you have into it, because you have no idea if you're going to come back, because the life cycle of teams under this new CBA is incredibly short. And it will see teams that go through, just an injury to one, and still important player, but one player, literally make the decision to tear it all down and take some time off, as we were seeing with Boston. And being ahead of the curve, I think we saw Dallas do something like this, and I'm not going to pretend that the, shall we say, ownership of that team was making these decisions with the new CBA in mind explicitly, but it put the Denver Nuggets, who we should talk about, in a great position to make moves. And if Boston does the same thing with their type of cap management, we could see them in a position to do something similar next season or the season there after that, depending on how things are going with Tatum.
Well, speaking of title windows, a couple of teams in the East think that theirs might have just opened up. One of the things that we have in our notes here, big winners, at least early for many in the Eastern Conference free agency period. The Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic are both getting serious. The Southeast Division appears to be a walkover no more. Each one of you gets one. Daniel, which one do you want?
I would say the Magic. The Desmond Bane trade is obviously not new, but we saw it in that first series with the Celtics. They need shooting. The shooting was just horrific. And now they got a great three-point shooter who's also a decent defender too, and can be kind of a star guy alongside Paulo and Franz. It makes them a lot more legit in a Eastern Conference that is like just totally up for grabs.
And Justin Quinn, last episode we discussed Kristaps Porzingis being traded to the Atlanta Hawks. What impact does that have on Atlanta, along with some of their other moves here?
Well, I don't think you can or should isolate the Nickeil Alexander-Walker signing, just because this is a team that really needs long, capable defenders, and now they have them, right? So if the Trae Young experiment is going to work somewhere, it's going to work in a team that looks like this. If it underachieves, then that tells us something really important in Atlanta, in particular, something very important about their future with him. I think they're going to do pretty well. I don't think they are a contender, but I do think they're going to make it out of the first round, which is going to be, progress for them.
Another ad that I think got a little more hype earlier before the season started, and maybe not as much now, but potentially a sneaky ad here. Luke Kornet also joining the Hawks for some bench shooting. Listen, I am really interested in seeing what this Hawks team can do. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis' health will be critical to making any serious run. We've heard that one before here in Boston. But listen, this is the best Hawks team that Trae Young has, I think, ever been a part of. And I don't think it's all that close from a talent standpoint. They pretty clearly want to see if they can make this thing work. I think Porzingis, in theory, would be a really good fit next to Trae. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was very strong last season, had a nice development curve, and seems like he's trending up. Suddenly, the Southeast Division, which most people always write off at the beginning of the season, is now looking a little tough, and the East in general is looking a little tougher. This is interesting news for two teams that had pretty high expectations last year: the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who both came close but did not quite get where they wanted to. For the Knicks, they signed Gershon Yabusele. They got Jordan Clarkson, and they don't have a coach still. We'll see what happens there. The Cleveland Cavaliers added Lonzo Ball, and they lost Ty Jerome. They also re-signed Sam Merrill to a pretty nice deal. Either one, which one do you want to start with? JQ, you go first this time.
I'll take the Cavs. It looks like they are really banking on internal development. You mentioned that recent signing. They didn't really add anyone of note, but they're a young team who's getting better, and they can still pivot by trading one of the guards in their backcourt if things don't work out by the end of the season. They are not my expectation to be considerably better than they were last season. I see the Lonzo signing as a downgrade. He's not as good as Ty Jerome, even if the fact that he has become a useful NBA player again is a really cool story. He's going the wrong way in the age curve, and hopefully his injury history is better than it has been. But they're not taking a minor risk by considering him taking up that much of their salary cap space. But they are still going to be a top 3 team, I think.
Daniel, the New York Knickerbockers are trying to get their ducks in a row for what they hope will be a finals run at a minimum. What are you seeing about these moves and about the current lack of coach on their team?
Yeah, I like these moves for them. Yabusele, they got him at a good price, especially after he had a great year with Philly, even though Philly wasn't any good, and really upped his value, but they still got him at a good price. Off the bench he'll help them. And then I really like the Jordan Clarkson move too. I feel like that's kind of flown under the radar because he's coming from Utah, but the Knicks needed bench scoring. They had like Campaign, Deuce McBride, who are solid, but I think Jordan Clarkson is better than them, and that will really help their starting group. And as for the coaching search, that's interesting. You would think if they fired Tom Thibodeau, who they only got better under, they would have a successor lined up, but I guess not. But maybe Mike Brown, I've heard.
I like that idea.
Yeah, seems like Brown is the favorite based on everything that I've read. They're still talking to James Borrego, and I believe they're talking to one other candidate. It sounds like Taylor Jenkins will almost certainly not be the Knicks head coach. Dawn Staley, there were some rumors there. That would be interesting. I think she'd actually be probably really good at that. It seems like she is not going to do that, though, in part, I would imagine, because she's got a pretty good gig already.
One of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Another just quick note on the Cavs. They also, as of 36 minutes ago, signed Larry Nance Jr., who will be returning to Cleveland. Seems fine. Seems like a perfectly reasonable backup forward who can play a little small ball 5. He's been there before. Why not? Other would-be East contenders, just really quickly, the Detroit Pistons are losing a lot despite having some high expectations to get better. They've lost Dennis Schroeder to the Kings. They've lost Tim Hardaway Jr. to the Denver Nuggets. They've added Karis LeVert. And we'll see what's happening with Malik Beasley. We don't really know on that one. Doesn't seem like he's going to be back in Detroit, but also doesn't seem like he's going to be going anywhere else either. We'll see. But yeah, let's pivot to the Western Conference because there's a lot going on there that we need to cover first. Man, there's so many things on this rundown. Daniel, you get first crack. Which Western Conference team do you want to talk about as far as their moves and what they've done?
I'll start with the Lakers. I think them not paying Dorian Finney-Smith kind of makes sense. I mean, it was a fair amount of price, or it was a fair price, but and then he leaves to Houston, and they're going to miss his defense. But I don't understand getting Jake LaRavia after that. They lose defense, and then they get a guy who I wouldn't say is a stellar defender by any means. I mean, he's a good shooter. But now they have Luka, Austin Reeves, LaRavia, an older LeBron, not exactly a defensive powerhouse. So I'm a little mystified by some of those moves, but I'm sure they have something else cooking because they need a big man, much like the Celtics.
Boy,
Yeah,
do
that
they.
was- I was just going to say that was one of the teams I was talking about when I was saying that there's a lot of teams that look like they're mid-process right now, and they definitely, like, what they're doing is very unclear.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's also some weird stuff going on with LeBron. I'll just say it. I think, LeBron has always been a little cryptic and a little strange and a little kind of petty with some of his front office wishes. And, for the most part, that's worked out in his favor, and he's stayed where he's wanted to stay. We haven't really seen anything suggesting that he is going to leave the Lakers imminently, but their relationship doesn't seem to be awesome right now. Just something to monitor. One of the Lakers' chief rivals and one of LeBron's chief rivals, Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, are doing some stuff. So, among other things, they've lost their stalwart center, Kevon Looney, to the New Orleans Pelicans, who Draymond Green waxed poetic about on his podcast. They are pretty strongly in the Al Horford mix, and there's a lot of smoke that Al Horford might be Warriors bound. JQ, what would you think about this move for Golden State should they end up pulling it off?
If they land Horford?
Yeah.
I think that will actually have them in a really solid position, depending on health, right? These are all older guys that make up the bulk of their minutes played in their starting unit. If it were 3 years ago, I would say that would put them in pole position to win the next title, but they're very clearly not those players anymore, yet they are also still pretty good. So the question then remains, can they find guys who are good enough to play with them to soak up a lot of the regular season minutes so they actually get to the postseason healthy enough to make an impact of the kind of sort you would want to sign with a team like that? So another team very mid-process, and unfortunately, part of the process seems to be screwing up the Celtics process.
Daniel, just really quick, Al Horford is not exactly buddy-buddy with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. What would that fit look like to you?
Yeah, I kind of thought about that too. I mean, if you look at the other teams he might go to, like the Lakers. All of these guys are not friendly with the Celtics at all. I mean, even Cleveland, you can say he's had battles with too. But he has played for Philly before. So, I mean, it didn't work out well. But I think he could get over any petty beefs because, I mean, he's obviously mature. He's won before, and that's really all he seems to care about now, this late in his career. And maybe that's another reason why he doesn't want to be, or he might not want to be, on the Celtics for this gap year.
Speaking of winning, one of the clear winners of the offseason, according to many, the Houston Rockets, who are cleaning up. They got Kevin Durant in a trade, which many people, I think myself included, would say was a virtual no-brainer for them. They got Dorian Finney-Smith. They added Clint Capella. The Rockets are getting pretty freaking serious here, guys. They seem like they are aggressively trying to make moves and shoot up in the Western Conference. I think this team is going to be potentially very, very good with a lot of flexibility to make some additional moves. Thoughts on the Rockets or on any of their other Western Conference rivals?
Well, we were talking earlier about what we might think the new pecking order in the West might be. It seems that at least the teams that are going to be in a position to be serious contenders have already done most of their work. They're being one of them. The Thunder, obviously, as the reigning champs, that feels weird to say, are also well positioned. I think that they're probably in pole position until they're not, right? Just based on what we've seen from them. But then the question is, who is number 2? Is it going to be the Rockets or the new look Denver Nuggets, who have really leaned into retooling their roster in a pretty impressive way for a team that basically had very little in the way of assets to do it? I think we should probably talk about that.
We should talk about that, but really quickly before we do, just want to address something we just talked about, the Detroit Pistons losing a lot of talent, but they've added some talent in Duncan Robinson, who will be going to them for a 3-year, $48 million deal, helping to replace the void filled by Tim Hardaway Jr. So they basically swapped out Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway for Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson, which seems fine. Anyway, back to the Denver Nuggets. Daniel, you want this one?
Yeah, sure. I've been impressed with their moves today, much like you guys. I mean, nice to see them get Bruce Brown back. I'm sure a lot of Nuggets fans will be happy about that. I like Cam Johnson, too. I think that was a good move by them. And kind of under the radar, but it did just recently happen, them trading for Valanciunas, and all they gave up was Saric, who really wasn't playing that much already. I think that's a really underrated move. Get a nice, solid, strong backup center on behind Jokic. And although they kind of had that gaffe where there was a comment about trading Jokic, which just shouldn't have been said, so far they're making up for that this offseason and getting him the help he definitely needed this season.
Oh, yeah. I love the Jonas Valanciunas signing. I think that's perfect for them. The biggest weakness that Denver had last year was they didn't have a playable backup center. I have long been a fan of Valanciunas' game. I think he actually fits quite well with what they're trying to do with Jokic. He's not exactly the same in terms of an offensive. He's a very good offensive player. He can score in the post. He's a good rebounder. He's a solid passer. He's defensively quite limited and has been for his whole career. But Jonas can put the ball in the hoop, and I think that adding him in as a backup center for Jokic, who so desperately needed anybody who could play even 10 to 15 minutes a game, I think it's a home run. I think Denver is interesting to me because all of their moves, with the exception of Bruce Brown, seem to be very offense-oriented, and I still have questions about their defensive ceiling, but they got better. Another team that almost certainly got better than what they used to be, the Dallas Mavericks added the number 1 pick in the draft, Cooper Flagg, in what I think pretty much everybody assumed was going to happen. Flagg is getting right to work in Dallas, and by all accounts seems to be pretty happy there. They also added D'Angelo Russell as a fill-in for Kyrie Irving. I think we can say that while he recovers from a torn ACL. Listen, this Mavs roster has got some talent on it. They've got Derek Lively. They've got Anthony Davis. They've got Cooper Flagg. I'm not a D'Lo guy, but we've seen him be successful. What do we make of the Mavs? JQ, take this one.
Oh, boy. I mean, they'll tread water just fine without Kyrie. Kyrie may not be, quote unquote, himself ever again. He will probably be playable, maybe by the end of this season if he's very lucky. But I don't know. I'm not expecting them to, make any deep runs in the West, but they should be in the mix for a regular playoff spot and probably a play-in spot with this move now. It really depends on how well Flagg develops in his first NBA season, because you can be the top overall seed, but if you are top overall pick, but people are not necessarily going to be nice to you just because you were the face of the next generation of the NBA for 3 months or whatever it was leading up into the NBA draft. The future for Flagg in this league is not going to be – people are going to come at him the way people come for a champion ball club the following season. They're going to want to see who he is, what he's capable of. And frankly, without saying anything about his potential, that may be a lot for him to deal with at first. So that may impact what ends up happening with Dallas this season. But even still, I expect him to be good enough, at least offensively, to have Dallas in a position to make the postseason one way or another.
All right, Daniel, we got 3 other teams in the West that we're looking at in our rundown. Let's get these ones done quickly, and then we'll move back to Boston. You can pick Los Angeles Clippers, Minnesota Timberwolves, or Memphis Grizzlies. Which one do you want to talk about?
I guess I'll start with the Clippers. Interesting them going for Brook Lopez. I mean, they already got Zubats, who's definitely a starter over him, I would say. But yeah, they get Harden back. I think it was like $41 million a year, which is a fair amount. But I mean, to compete in this NBA, you need to pay your stars, even if the CBA doesn't want you to. And then I like them getting Batum back. I mean, he's just like a good veteran guy, good shooting, and he wants to be there. So I like that move for them. But after all this, I'm not thinking really any more highly of them. I don't see them as like a true contender, but they'll be in the mix at least.
I have to wonder if the results of this next season for the Clippers will largely depend on whether Kawhi Leonard is healthy or not. Anyway, keeping it moving, JQ, you get to pick between Minnesota and Memphis, and I'll take the last one. Which one do you want to talk about?
I will leave you Memphis, since that is your former stomping grounds. Minnesota, I'm not real. There's been a lot of hand-wringing over how much they're paying Naz Reid. And, to a certain extent, I think that's probably fair based on what we've seen from him so far. It doesn't really, the main argument is that in this kind of a cap environment, overpaying a hometown favorite as they did with him can put you in a position where you have to let go of a critical piece in the future. And that might be true, but I mean, let's just see how this team is next season. Losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to impact them. I haven't seen, and I'm not aware of any plans to do something to replace him. They are still a relatively young team, though. I think the biggest thing for them that they have not really addressed is just that Mike Conley is old as fuck, frankly. And it's not clear to me that they have their replacement in, what's his name? Edward. I'm blanking on his name. Their point guard they just drafted. Excuse me about that. I'm not entirely sure they're going to solve that in this offseason either. They may just need to be kind of bad for a little bit while he gets better, because their players aren't getting any younger.
As far as the Memphis Grizzlies go, their big moves of the offseason, dealing Desmond Bane away for Cole Anthony, who it sounds like is not going to be staying in Memphis for very long. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Luke Kornet, who has already left Memphis, is now bound for the Atlanta Hawks. They also have signed Ty Jerome, but probably the biggest and most important move is that they re-signed Jaren Jackson to a max extension. I like Jaren Jackson a lot. I have liked Jaren Jackson a lot for a long time. He reminds me of Al Horford. That's a lot of money to pay Jaren Jackson. And that's all I'll say about the Memphis Grizzlies. We'll see what happens to that team. We should probably swing it back to the Boston Celtics, who are the team that we usually talk about on this podcast.
A little bit.
So yeah, let's go into this. First off, the Celtics did add some other players. They added them through the draft. Specifically, they added Hugo Gonzalez from Spain with the 28th overall pick. They also traded back in the second round from 32 to acquire Amari Williams from the United Kingdom and also from Kentucky, UK. That's fun. And Max Shulga out of VCU. We'll each take one of these draft picks to talk about. And Justin, you're going to go first.
Max Shulga, the only player that I was hoping Boston would take that they actually did take. He was ranked as high as the middle of the second round, so Some people are looking at him being signed by the Celtics as a pretty good move. I think it's a great move. There are some questions about his ability to get his offense off against NBA level defense, which is fair. He's a little bit small. He doesn't quite have a negative wingspan, but his physical measurements are not exactly overwhelming. They're good for his position, which is kind of a combo guard position, leaning towards being more of a wing. I think he's going to be a fun player in Summer League, but try not to get too excited by what he does in Summer League because he's going to be a little bit more limited, a little bit more out of his depth once he actually plays at the NBA level.
Daniel, between Hugo Gonzalez and Amari Williams, who do you want to talk about?
I'll go with Amari Williams. Well, first off, a little pat on our back because I think we called them trading down with the Magic, and then you called Shulga, Justin. So I guess that prep we did worked out. Maybe they were listening. But yeah, Amari Williams out of Kentucky. I can't lie. I don't think he was on my radar really. But learning more about him, I've liked what I've learned. Has the third most assists in Division I of any center. Went from the CAA and then went from Drexel. And then he went to Kentucky, and his stats only went up. Like, even though he made the jump to conferences, the increased competition didn't slow him down, which is always good to see. Yeah, I like him. 6'10". I mean, Celtics need height, so they need big men, as we've talked about. And he obviously wouldn't be an instant fix or an instant solution by any means, but maybe down the line he could be part of their plan.
Like Nemi when Nemi joined the team.
Mm-hmm.
Very sloppy, clearly not ready, but you see the kernel.
Yeah.
The one thing about Amari is if he wants to play NBA minutes, he's going to have to get that free throw percentage up because it's currently hovering in the low 60s, and that's not going to work for the NBA. But the athleticism, the tools, the passing could be interesting. That leaves me with another passer, Hugo Gonzalez, who I think most people were surprised by the Celtics taking, to say the least. He is from Spain. He played for Real Madrid. He did not play very much for Real Madrid, in large part because, if you know anything about the European teams, they heavily prioritize vets who are actually going to help them win games, as opposed to rookies who are very clearly going to be in the NBA. And that was the case with Hugo. He's tall. He's got a huge wingspan. He's got pretty serious athletic ability for his position. He is a ball handler. He's a pretty decent passer. I have questions about whether the shot will translate to the NBA level. His release is a little slow. It also feels like his handle, while decent, is going to need to get better if he wants to play at the NBA level. That being said, the passing vision is pretty solid. And to me, what jumps out is he strikes me as someone who will be maniacally crashing the glass and trying to block people's shots from the guard position. That is a classic Alex likes this player archetype. I am all in, as you guys very well know, on guards like Derek White who jump out of the building, block shots, and crash the boards. So I think the pick is solid. I will say that if he does not improve the shortcomings in his game between the shooting and the ball handling, it's going to be very hard for him to see regular minutes in the NBA at an early age. But if he can go to Derek White school and learn a couple of tricks from him, I would not be surprised if Hugo ends up turning out into a pretty solid role player. As it stands right now, the Boston Celtics, with Al Horford's future very much still up in the air, will be running back Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, Nimi Ishketa. Unfortunately, Jason Tatum will not, in all likelihood, be playing for the Boston Celtics, barring a miracle of modern science. Torn Achilles, you tend to be out for the whole season. As it stands right now, the bench will probably look like Anthony Simons, Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, George Niang, and Xavier Tillman. And with deep reserves, J.D. Davison, Max Shulga, Drew Peterson, or maybe Hugo Gonzalez, Josh Minott, or who is Norris? I have no idea who this guy
Miles
is.
Norris.
Miles Norris, right,
Yeah.
who played for about 10 minutes for the Boston Celtics.
It's not unclear if he's coming back. He's going to play with the Summer League team, but he's not under contract moving forward, if I remember right.
Amari Williams and Luka Garza. That is roughly what we're looking at as far as this team goes. What are we going to do with this team, guys? What do we think? What does this roster look like at present? Let's just go around the horn. What at the Eastern Conference standings, the Boston Celtics roster has not changed from what I just said out. What are the Boston Celtics seed at the end of the year? Daniel, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, if nothing changes, I don't know, maybe like a play-in team, maybe 8th, 9th. I mean, yeah, the East is not as good as the West, but the teams are still getting better in the East. And this is not a better roster, obviously. So I'd still put them on that lower end. Yeah, maybe they're better than like the Hornets and Wizards, maybe the Nets, I guess. But no, this would not be
Toronto, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that puts them like right around 10, maybe 11 at the worst. Probably 8th seed is probably about as good as they're going to be, with no changes, that being the big caveat.
With no changes being the big caveat, I got to be honest, fellas. Looking at this roster, they are one Jaylen Brown turned ankle away from pretty dire. I would not bet on this team to make much noise in the Eastern Conference. In fact, I would say, as it stands right now, assuming there are no other moves, which we all think is unlikely, I would not be surprised if this team is hanging out in the mid to late lottery. But we will see. So let's wrap things up. We don't have a steal today as we have no guest. But Daniel, thank you for joining us again. Celtics are going to have to do Las Vegas Summer League as they usually do. As it stands right now, their current roster is going to be Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, Miles Norris, Hugo Gonzalez, Amari Williams, Max Shulga. And then there are a couple of other ones that are not under contract. Those are the under contract guys. Hayden Gray, Ben Gregg, who I'm pretty sure was my former colleague teaching at the Walnut Hill School. Oh, wait, we might be thinking of a different Ben Gregg.
Different one, probably.
Zach Hicks and Aaron Scott. Of those guys who are not under contract for the C's, so not Baylor, not Jordan, not Miles Norris, not Gonzalez, not Williams, not Shulga, is there anyone that jumps out to you guys? Feel free to just go ahead.
I was looking into it. I mean, I can't say there are any names where I'm like, wow, this is like a hidden gem. But ironically, the name I circled was Ben Gregg. I think he's like 6'10", decent shooter, decent rebounder. I mean, the size makes him interesting purely from what the Celtics might need. But he's listed as a forward, so he's probably not like a bruising center or anything.
Right,
But
he's kind of thin.
Yeah, I mean, none of these names really jump off the page.
It is interesting.
Ben Gregg also a fabulous history teacher. Just has to be thrown out there. Anyway, continue.
No, he's also the only one on that list who worked out for the Celtics pre-draft.
Okay. Yeah. Summer League, you never know. I mean, sometimes guys pop up and surprise you. You'll get a Drew Peterson here and there. More often than not, Summer League is a chance for your Jordan Walshes and your Baylor Shiremans to prove that they're too good for Summer League, hopefully.
That list is going to get longer, too, because there's only Baylor Shireman and Max Shulga for guards. The rest of them are all forwards, or in the case of Amari Williams, a center. That's it. So there's going to be at least one more guard coming.
I would certainly hope by now that Jordan Walsh is only doing a very short Summer League stint here, but we'll see. So obviously Summer League happens and then there's NBA preseason. Really quickly, is there a major difference between NBA preseason and Summer League? Obviously the rosters are different, but what about the kind of goals of things that they're hoping for? What are we even looking for here?
I mean, I would say players that flash a clear NBA skill against a higher level of competition. These players have been playing, for the most part, collegiately. Occasionally, you'll see one of the guys on these rosters being more like a journeyman who has never really been able to catch on in the NBA. But for the most part, these games are not about winning the game. It's really cool if you make it to the G League championship and you get to take part in that. But really, that is just a longer developmental runway. And we know that this is the case because, I mean, you are not going to see, for example, Flag playing in the G League summer league. Sorry, that just really screwed me up. You're not going to see him playing very much, more than maybe a game, right? 2 games at the absolute most. Because, again, the point is not to win these games. It's to find the prospects against higher levels of competition and find which ones are worth signing, which ones are worth shuttling to your G League outfit. If, like we might see Greg make it there if he doesn't make it on the team as a 2-way player. You almost never see someone actually gain an actual roster spot out of these. And I think that's going to become increasingly unlikely based on how important those positions are these days. But, like maybe with a very bad team, you might. And I think ultimately that's really just the main difference is it's a development opportunity more than it is a game.
Daniel, the Boston Celtics will have a successful summer league
I suppose if Jordan Walsh shows out in maybe the one game that he plays in, and Baylor Shireman too. I mean, I was going to say something really similar to Justin. Like, this isn't about a win or a loss, like whatever. You want to see your guy be a stud against inferior competition, hopefully. That's what you want to see. You don't really care if they win the G League championship, whatever. And especially guys like Walsh, who's been around for a little now. In terms of the NBA, he's no longer young. And Baylor, who's coming off a promising start, so you want to see him continue that in the summer league and hopefully keep that momentum going into the regular season.
Yeah, multi-year players playing more than 1 or 2 games. You don't want to see guys like Baylor Shireman have just like bad summer league games. But yeah, that's really about it.
What are we looking for in summer league generally, not Celtics edition, just broadly? Daniel, you're first.
Talking about other players, I would say even, away from the Celtics, I'm really interested in Yang Hansen for the Blazers. I've seen some things that I think he's going to play. So I'd like to see how he does. I mean, he's a relative unknown for a lot of NBA fans. He came out of the stands when he got drafted. He was not expected to go that early. But just watching his highlights, it's been pretty entertaining. A lot of Jokic in his game, like people have said. And I want to see what he can do against sort of NBA level talent.
JQ, what are you looking out for in the summer league generally?
I mean, all the top picks and how they do, but Ace Bailey in particular, I really want to see the dynamic, the body language, like what is really going on as much as we could tell from what is not being said. But also all the guys that we did not end up taking with any of the picks that we started draft nights with this year. There's a lot of guys that Maxime Brainard, for example, Danny Wolf. There's a whole bunch of guys that I'm just going to forever be wondering whether, being the incredibly renowned draft experts that we are, we maybe just blew that out of proportion in the moment we were getting irked by it. Or did we maybe make a big mistake? I don't think it's going to be definitive either, this weekend, or this week, but it will be fun to see how those prospects do in a game situation.
Yeah, renowned draft expert. I notably was all in on Dragon Bender and really hated Jaylen Brown in the 2015 draft. So I have my ducks in a row when it comes to draft stuff. For me, I am looking for 2 things in particular. One, what is the early returns on the big Pelicans gamble on Derek Queen, a player who I really liked heading out of the draft and who the Pelicans clearly really liked as well because they traded an unprotected first-round pick for him in a situation where I'm not sure the Pelicans should maybe be doing that, but we will see. Maybe Derek Queen tears Summer League up and wins Rookie of the Year or something like that, and it's all fine. The other team that I'm going to be looking out for is what exactly is the plan for the Brooklyn Nets just seemingly drafting every available guard and then throwing them out there, despite already being a fairly guard-heavy team as it is? I'm a little confused, but it's sure going to be entertaining.
Their summer league team is almost going to be their actual team.
Yeah, listen, I live in Brooklyn, and all I'll say is I'm pretty excited about the ticket prices for next year. Let's put it that way. Be a fun watch. Anyway, we close our episodes with something to remember or something to forget. Daniel, you're up first.
I guess sort of a thing to remember Luke Kornet by now that he's going on to greater things and getting paid a lot more money. But just his performance in Game 5 against the Knicks, career high blocks, just like electrifying the Garden, because I was there. Just seeing that was crazy, and from where he came from, a G League guy, never highly touted. I mean, he was on the Knicks, and he told that story of how he would drive into practice in his like minivan, and they would check his ID because they're like, "You're not a player." And he would have to like fight with them to get in there. Yeah, no, I mean, he's 7 feet tall, but they still checked his ID. It was a really funny story. But just to do that against your former team, and in the process make millions of dollars from that game in his season prior. But the Spurs,
particularly that game.
Yeah, the Spurs and the NBA were watching, and they're like, maybe we could give this guy a lot of money. And unfortunate for the Celtics and how that worked out in the CBA. They just can't compete with $41 million. But I know Celtics fans will always appreciate Luke, and he's a champion anyways.
JQ, something to remember, something to forget.
Yeah, I would like to forget that he's moving on, as evidenced by my also Luke Kornet themed something to remember, which was the battle, quote unquote battle, for the full season Tommy Award with Derek White, and really just like the entire goofiness of the man while he was in Boston. I am a big goofy connoisseur as a goofy person myself, and it's not going to be anywhere near as fun not having him around.
It's 3 for 3. We're going to remember you, Luke Kornet. I'm going to remember you because you answered my question in a preseason press conference about Vanderbilt, and
I remember
that. A really nice guy. Shout out to Luke Kornet. I really enjoyed watching his development as a Boston Celtic. It was a cool story. I'm glad that he's getting his bag. Maybe I'll go visit my brother and we'll go catch a Spurs game in San Antonio, and we will be the loudest Luke Kornet cheering section out there. But also, when you come back to the Garden, it's on site, buddy. Anyway, that's another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod in the books. It's Alex Goldberg. You can find me doing, mostly music stuff on Instagram.com with Divine Sweater. Nothing major to announce, but we'll let you know when something happens. JQ, where can we find your stuff?
You're either already doing it and have a way to do that, or you go to Celtics Wire, one of the many USA Today site-specific teams. You can catch all the stuff that is making my sore back even more sore than it was from the dumb crap I did at the gym. There's a lot going on right now, so there'll be a lot up.
And new co-host Daniel, where can we find your stuff?
Just go to Clutch Points or check me out on Twitter at DanielD1214. I'll be monitoring the free agency news because, I think we made it through an episode and Horford didn't get traded, knock on wood, or didn't get signed elsewhere. But just keep up with me at Clutch Points and on Twitter because I know there's more news to come.
Good stuff, fellas. As always, dear listener, good to check in with you. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great holiday weekend. And we'll keep you up to date as things change on Havlicek Stole the Pod.